on my live profile. I'm going to leave my intro splash screen up for a few seconds today. Last stream I did, I was too quick to drop it into the camera view, and the icon for the video on Live Coding TV isn't the splash screen. It's one of the scenes of me and my code editor up there, which isn't a problem, but it kind of broke the tradition of all my other live streams, except for the very first one. Anyway, now I'm going to go into main scene. Hey everybody, welcome to the AquaStax Hour with me, Long Steve. And I have just realized that I need to bring my window, keep it afloat. I use iTerm2 to display the chat window down in the bottom corner of the screen here. And I also have a couple of other windows that I keep afloat, but they're hidden behind the camera view. One of them shows the log for my chatbot, and the other one actually doesn't do anything. Anyway, let's see. So, anybody that was brave enough to watch the last stream I did, you may remember that I didn't actually get a lot of code done. I was trying to figure out how to render a custom, or how to use a custom draw function in my grid node, and I couldn't get anything to work. Basically, it was one of those really sort of frustrating things. It turns out, well, actually, there's a lot of things it turns out that it was, and I'll go into that today. But first of all, I didn't check in any code at the end of last stream, mainly because I hadn't written anything at all. I mean, if we look at what SmartGit tells me, I tried enabling Sprite Debug Draw, but that didn't work. That was it, so we can ignore that. In the grid code, I added a test label and basically put like a bit of text on the screen. And I tried to use the debugger in Chrome very heavily to delve into the actual innards of the Cocos2d-JS rendering code to see what was going on, but really didn't get very far. And that was pretty much it. Anyway, oh hi, SM Hassan, good to see you. I was just describing how I didn't get very far in my last stream. I ended up writing almost no code and trying to use the debugger to figure out how Cocos2d-JS renders its nodes and see if I couldn't create my own node with a custom draw function. Anyway, I'm actually going to discard all of that code. I didn't commit it at the end of the last stream because it was just some test code, did nothing at all. We'll discard that completely. Yes, reload selected file. Anyway, what I've discovered in the meantime is some very interesting things. Specifically, that Cocos2d-JS version 2, and I think 2.2 was the last version, or last major version that they released. Might have been 2.2.3, I think. Is radically different when it comes to drawing and rendering nodes than version 3. And I am most experienced in using version 2. That's the version that we use in several of our projects over the years. Well, hi Noshio, good to see you. What I have here is, let's see, I don't need that anymore. I have some, I have versions of Cocos. Oh, hi Jenny 0030, good to see you. I have a couple of files from an old version of Cocos2d-JS, in fact the 2.2 version, and I'm going to have a quick look at them because this explains what I was trying to do in my last stream that I failed to do, because now I'm using Cocos2d-JS version 3. So what happened in the past, and this is actually confirmed by the documentation. If I look in the documentation for, let's just move that away, version 2, and I go into CCNode, and I look down at the draw, or actually I look at the node main description of the class, and it says, in particular, subclassing a CCNode usually means one or all of overriding init to initialize resources and schedule callbacks, create callbacks to handle the advancement of time using the update method, and overriding draw to render the node. Now I'm sure I've read that in the past when I've been looking at this documentation, so it might have been that I accidentally clicked on the wrong version of the JavaScript docs to start reading. Anyway, if you look at the CCNode documentation for version 3 of Cocos2d-JS, there's a very subtle difference. Here we go, jump down to the bottom. It only says subclassing a CCNode usually means one or all of overriding constructor function CTOR to initialize resources. So that's different to the init, but they're about the same thing. And create callbacks to handle advancement of time. Nothing at all to do with overriding draw, because now you don't really do that. And just to prove my point, that I wasn't completely mad and doing totally the wrong thing, I was doing something that I used to do in old code. And in CCNode, and this is the 2.2 version of CCNode, there is a draw method, and it even says override this method to draw your own node. And of course, this was, I think, 2.2 was version 2 of Cocos2d-JS was the first time they implemented WebGL code, as well as Canvas. So I could be wrong with that, but the context that's passed into the draw function. You can either do GL stuff or you can do HTML5 Canvas drawing code. And as an example, the CC label TTF, which is a subclass of Node, down here, I found, so just as a bit of an aside, all of the original Cocos2d-JS 2.2 code flips between rendering using Canvas or WebGL by basically changing what it does in the draw functions for all the nodes. And in this particular one, in label TTF, the prototype for the draw method is either _draw for WebGL or draw for Canvas. And I have a feeling that most of the other nodes were like that as well. I won't go into them all, but they all basically did something different. And also some of the other functions are changed based on WebGL or Canvas. And if we have a look at draw for WebGL, so the context. So in fact, it's still the context, the drawing context for the Canvas object, which is the same whether it's 2D or 3D. But in the case of WebGL, you can use 3D methods and do all the things here, like GL.vertex attributes and etc. etc. And it has this sprite debug draw, which is interesting. We discovered the other day that the node debug draw doesn't work at all in the new version, but we might be able to fix that. I'm hoping. I've got a plan for what I'm going to do a bit later. I haven't tried it yet, so we'll see if it works. So this is the specific draw for WebGL, and there's also a specific draw for Canvas. Let's see if I can draw for Canvas. There it is. Jump past it already. There it is. And this it doesn't use the GL calls, it uses the draw image. And probably fill rect, yeah. These are the fairly basic HTML5 Canvas API calls. Anyway, what I was trying to do the other week was override draw, and I hadn't really thought about it very much. I hadn't got a plan for what I was doing. Anyway, so now, if we look in the latest node class, oh, hi, Valdine, good to see it. Hope I pronounced your name right. Let's just dive into CCNode. So, if you read the documentation a little bit more closely, some of the how-to and intro documentation, it explains that they completely revamped the rendering routines between Cocos2d version 2 and version 3. And they've disconnected all of the rendering routines completely from the nodes themselves. One of the drawbacks of the old routine, where each node had its own draw method, was that the rendering was closely tied to the the node ordering and the node traversal. You'd end up with a high-level node, probably for a screen or a panel or a background panel. Oh, there's a plane going over. I might have to close my window in a minute if it's too loud. And nodes were sort of sorted and then drawn one at a time, and it was completely the whole render function was completely dependent on the order of all the nodes and going from one to another. What they've done now in the latest version is disconnected that completely. So the nodes themselves do a load of setting up of render commands, and these render commands are added to a queue. I'm just highlighting that for chatting while I speak here. Actually, ignore the highlighting. And all these render commands are added to a queue, and then they're all executed separately from the node traversal itself, and that should allow the Cocos2d rendering engine to be optimized for different devices, and also multi-thread as well. I think it's a big architectural change for bringing in multi-threaded rendering. Anyway, I was going to quickly look at the CCNode class in the latest version, which is, I think, where a lot of my confusion stemmed from as well. It's in base node, isn't it? I think. Where am I looking? Cocos2d core. That's core, yeah, base nodes. So actually, the previous version of Cocos2d, hi Jenny, was only had a CCNode class, and within the CCNode class was the rendering code for WebGL and Canvas. Now you have a base CCNode class, and within it is included a render command underscore method. So it's kind of hidden. It's part of the internals, but we're going to have a play around with it hopefully today. The render command, let's just see where it's used. It's set up so there's lots of dirty flags going on, which basically means that if the scale changes, and it sets a flag that says the transformation, which is the rotation, the scale, or the position, it's changed. Similarly with color and a few other things as well, I think. Let's just go. The render command is used all over the place. Anchor points, the size. Actually, I think it's not set up in here. Let me just go to the bottom. Init render command. Here we are. Init render command. So this is the single switch that says if we're using Canvas, then we actually use a Canvas render command object. Otherwise, we use a WebGL render command, and those objects come out of the separate class files. So in order to implement your own node with custom rendering in Cocos2d-JS version 3, it turns out that we have to implement 3 things, or 2 if you only want to do Canvas or WebGL. You have to implement the node, and then you also have to implement the Canvas render or the WebGL render command for it. Hi Eugene, ESCA. Eugene Esker, is that? Not sure. Good to see you. Anyway, if I have a quick look in one of these commands, let's look in the Canvas command because I understand a bit more. There is, interestingly enough, there's a custom render command, sort of util, stuck at the top of the class here. I'm not sure if that's used anywhere. Oh, here's the definition of all the flags. So you've got transform, visibility, color, opacity, cache. Not sure what that does. Ordering. Oh yeah. Node order if that changes. Text if you do set text on a text-based node. Anyway, so I can't remember, Eugene, if you were around my last stream when I basically didn't write any code and was floundering around trying to figure out how Cocos2d node drawing worked. I've figured it out now, and I figured out that the stuff I was trying to do was only relevant for Cocos2d version 2.2, which was actually where I was familiar with that old code. Cocos2d version 3, they've completely revamped the rendering routines entirely, and none of it is relevant anymore. So you can't just override the draw method. You've got to do something different. You basically have to create a major revamp. I was mentioning earlier, it's probably to do with being able to make the rendering routines multi-threaded from within Cocos2d itself. But anyway, the upshot of it is that none of the stuff I did last week had any effect, and of course we know that because I wrote any code or I wrote some code and nothing happened. So today I'm going to try and see if I can get a custom node created that has some specialist rendering code in it. It may not actually be necessary in the long run, but it's something interesting. I got interested in trying to figure out how it all works. So I'm just looking at the render command specifically for the node in the latest Cocos2d-JS. It does a few things. This is all the dirty flag setting again. Somewhere down here is, I think it's called rendering. There's actually a function within the render command. It's called rendering, and it's what's called by the renderer routines. Maybe it's not in there. Maybe in here. So this is the WebGL one, which is quite small. It's the render command. Let's see, somewhere down in here it must call rendering. Let's just do a rendering. There's a few different render commands, or rendering methods in different nodes. Proto.rendering, there's a sprite canvas, yeah, particle, batches, label font. Just out of interest, what does that do? No, it doesn't do that. Anyway, it might have been called rendering. I discovered that earlier. But what I was going to do next was look at some of the, let's get rid of those. I was going to look at some sample code, and I was trying to figure out how to make my own node. And within the Cocos2d-JS sources, there's a directory called tests and JS tests inside that. And there's an OpenGL test. And in here, it actually overrides node. And here we are, it creates so the render command is filled out with some values, needs rendering true, it's got a matrix, and rendering, wrong way, cool icon. And inside rendering, this is what's called by the renderer after everything's all set up and the node is going to be drawn at the actual point of drawing it. And this particular example has a bunch of different subclasses, and they all, because this particular rendering function calls the draw method on a node, then it's actually implemented in the superclass GL node here, and the subclasses are used down here. Are they subclasses or are they created? I can't remember now. Let's see, where does it use GL node? GL node, here we go. So it creates a new GL node, and then it adds a draw function to it. So some of the examples, this is a particular example that uses some shaders. It creates a node, and then it overrides its draw method to do some custom work based on this particular example. If we look at another one, let's see, so it's going to be glnode.draw. Let's find that again. So these are all specific to the WebGL code, obviously. So glnode.draw. So there's lots of draw functions to this. So I think I can use a similar mechanism, and I'll provide a draw method, or I'll provide a rendering method for the renderer command for each of the canvas and the WebGL paths. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to go into grid, and I might. The question is, do I do this? Try and do what I was planning to do last week, using my newfound knowledge of the rendering command structure of the Cocos2d-JS, or do I create a new node and just try testing it out myself? Let's see. I think there's quite a lot of cruft in grid already. I'm going to just create a brand new node and just play around with it. And it might be useful for testing purposes in the future if I have a node that draws a bounding box rectangle around itself or something like that. Then I can subclass it if I want to put some debug output on the screen. Anyway, so let's start with I'm going to add a new file. Let's see. It's going to go into the source folder, and what to call it? I could call it my node, but that's pretty lame. Let's just call it. I could call it SL node as opposed to GL node. I don't want to call it node. I just want to call it. Maybe I'll just call it debug. I don't know. I might just call it test node. Test node. That'll do for now. Right. And so I'm going to borrow most of the code from this OpenGL test actually to start with. So let's create my own node class. Borrow this. Test node. It's not going to be CC, it's going to be AQ, and it's going to be test node. It's going to be that. And it's going to be called the init method. So this is specific to the OpenGL or the WebGL code path. Let's do something like they do in the node, or they used to do in the node code. How do I determine the difference between OpenGL and WebGL? Where's my? I kind of want to cheat and go back and do what the old code used to do. Borrow this bit of code here. Let's see if this. I wonder if this still works. cc.browser.supports WebGL. dive into the docs now to figure this out. cc.browser, is that even a thing anymore? Probably isn't, is it? It's probably in cc-config. cc.view. Game. No, it's not going to be in game. I'm just looking to see if I've used any particular config options before. Let's see. Support WebGL. This still used? CC boot still has this in. So it does set that underscore support WebGL. Wonder if that's exposed via a different cc.sys. Here we go. That's probably the thing that I want, isn't it? Safari, come back. cc.sys. Capabilities of the current platform. Is that what I want? cc.sys.capabilities. Here we go. What's it doing in here? Right, so it's sys.capabilities.opengl. That's if it supports it. What I want to know if it's actually using it. Because support canvas. User render mode. Where does that come from? Right. This is it. Render mode is what gets set in here. So 0 is pick the best one. 1 is canvas and 2 is WebGL, I believe. How does that get exposed? Is that in cc.gain, cc.render type? User render mode. Determine render type. Yeah, but where does it export it? I want to see where it gets put into. It's config. Config key render mode. See if that's put somewhere. It's using it. It puts it in there. This render context. cc.webgl context. cc._render type. But I don't necessarily want to use an underscore method. cc.render. That cc.render is in the documentation, isn't it? cc. Is it there? Nope. Oh well, I guess I can cheat. For now, I just want to figure out whether or not I'm using the. I can use cc._render type equals render type canvas. So. Actually, we want to do that. Else WebGL. So with canvas, I don't particularly want to do very much. I just want to call draw. Now let's see what the OpenGL test does. One of these tests just draws some geometry on the screen, so I want to sort of borrow that. So I can at least do something with the GL code. Init buffers, CC API test, I think that draws a square. That's useful. Let's borrow this. This.shader. So that's color and position. So this is probably a bit sort of low level, but it's basically just telling OpenGL that we're going to pass it some colors and some positions, and we're going to draw a square based on the vertexes that are configured down in the init buffers method. Right, well actually there's a triangle and a square, we just want a square for now. And that's setting the vertex buffer positions, setting the colors, and then drawing it as a triangle strip. So I want to borrow those particular bits of code. So, that's using that. If OpenGL, oh, no, that's hard coding the specific thing. So this is my init, my test node. I might as well just do it in here for now. Don't need a draw method. I'm just going to use the rendering method. I think I also want to do bind buffers null. Right. So that will draw. Oh, I've got to set the buffers up. Buffers square. I suppose I could put the triangle for now. Borrowing this bit of code. Draw a full screen square. Draw a full screen triangle, and I actually want that bit at the bottom. Right. So what's that going to do? Init buffers is called. I probably want to call it up here, don't I? Right, so test node, and that is going to draw using those OpenGL commands, I hope. Let's try and put one somewhere on the screen. I might as well put one on the grid. Or no, let's not bother with that. Let's do it in game. Oh, first of all, I've got to add it to this. Code for life joined. As again, what are you using? I'm using I'm using Cocos2d-JS to create a remake of my old game that I made many years ago. If you look on the Live Coding TV page, you'll see an animated GIF. Actually, I haven't even started the game up today yet. There's not a lot going on yet, although I have some blocks dropping down the screen. So it's all JavaScript. My editor of choice here is SlickEdit, and I'm using a Mac, and I've set up a few things like Gulp to help me out on running code. Anyway, so now let's go into Chrome. Let's use Chrome. Here it is. So at the moment, I've got some blocks dropping down the screen, and I can rotate them around, and I can drop them down. There's some bugs at the moment where that won't land properly. Anyway, and I can hit the spacebar to insert the block into the grid. At some point in the future, they'll all stack up and break, and everything will be fun. Anyway, that's using the WebGL rendering code. I know that. And what I was about to do was add a test node. Yeah, it's like Tetris. It's a cross between Tetris and Lemmings, if you look at the original animation. It's called AquaStax. And there's not a lot of info on the web. It was written for mobile phones about 10 years ago. But I'm remaking it just because I want to play it again. Anyway, I was about to add a node to my game, so let's just see this. New block, stick something over the top of the screen. Test node equal new test node. Self dot add child test node. Let's see what happens. It crashes. Test node is not defined. Why is test node? Oh, it's aq.testnode, isn't it? Oh, I've got some breakpoints still set in the debugger. Oh, thanks for the follow, Code for Life. Much appreciated. Still not working. Nope. Win size is not defined. Oh, okay. There's some. I copied and pasted some of this init buffers method. It uses win size. It needs to be cc.winsize. That's probably something that the example test code I was copying is all very nicely structured, and it has lots of superclasses and things. So there's probably some assumptions about what's defined. So that sets up my square. So that's basically setting up some arrays, the vertices for the square, and then the colors. What's that? RGBA. It's going to be blue. And that's setting up the triangle. It's going to be blue, and we're just rendering the triangle at the moment. So let's see what that does. Vertex no bound array buffer. Okay, right. So definitely some things going wrong there. Test node line 47. So it's definitely coming in here. It's trying to draw. It's trying to actually get to this point here. This dot. Am I actually calling? Is it the right this? It might not be. I might want to do. Take a bunch of time. That's not going to be called yet. Can I do this? I'm about to hit paste, but it's not going to work. Oh, it did work! Wow, that's impressive. I didn't know Slickr did that. I'm suitably impressed by that. Right, let's just try. Ooh. And I'll stick it up in here as well. Okay, or can I retype mat of undefined? Self._matrix. No, okay, so it's actually the self in here is the node, but in here we do actually want this in certain circumstances, I expect. Oh, that didn't work. Pushes this ._matrix, but it's self.buffers that I want. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Look at that. It's a massive triangle. Oh, and it's actually. Why is it moving it? Let's see what it's doing. Putting it in game. Add test node. Self.add. What's the self here? Self is my game layer. That's interesting that it's moving it. Also, it's red. Why is it red? Oh no, the triangle is red. That is true. Let's change it to blue. Yeah, it's blue. Right. So it's definitely coming into this bit of code, and we're actually drawing a triangle using the OpenGL commands. I don't know, it's transforming it based on something at the moment, but I won't worry about that for now. What I'm interested in doing is seeing if I can get it to actually, let's do the same thing with canvas commands. So what I probably want, command matrix identity, not worried about the matrix. So if we're in WebGL code, WebGL, self.rendering command, yep. Don't need that bit at the moment. Actually, I'm going to pinch that and put it up here. So here we want draw node. Down here we're doing it using WebGL, and let's draw a square instead. Don't care about a triangle anymore, because if I can draw a square, I can draw an outline of a square, then I can draw a bounding box. So I don't need the triangle buffers in there. Draw a square. Let's just see if that still works. Should do. A big blue square attached to our node now. Let's make it a bit smaller. So it's actually win size, I don't know, I can use grid size, can't I, for now, just as a or block size, just as a handy constant, block size. Test node. Yeah, there's my blue block. Right, it's a bit small to see actually. There we go. So that blue block is drawn using directly using WebGL code. It's not using anything specific for the any underlying engine code. It's actually raw OpenGL. Now I should be able to do the same thing with canvas commands. Ooh, somebody new. In2p, good to see it. So I don't need to do that, but what I do want to do is, so canvas commands, something pretty simple. Set, now this is where I should know the API for HTML5 canvas, but I can't remember the push and pop for the states. HTML5 canvas. Let's see. Canvas tutorial, good old W3 schools. Let's see, we want to, I could just do a fill rect. That's probably, I'll start with that. I'll just do a fill rect. Fill rect. So it's much easier than the OpenGL code for drawing a rectangle. Fill rect. Positioning, that's interesting. If I do 0, 0, block size. This is probably where the transformations come in place. Self.rendering, yeah, function, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now what I want to do is switch it to use canvas rendering. So I'm pretty sure I set that to 1. This might need a complete reload. Yes, so now it looks quite different. Well, they're not that different actually. And there's my square. I wonder if it's crashed. Did I get something wrong there? CTX.fillRect is not a function. Okay, so what is CTX at this point? Let's breakpoint that. It's actually hitting it though. Last time I didn't get my draw method, nothing was happening. It was never even coming into place. Actually, we can look at the call stack now. We've got draw scene. Yeah, it's calling rendering cc.render context. Is that the? Yeah, I think that's the canvas. CC canvas context wrapper. Right. So I probably have to call get context or something on it. This is where it's going to abstract the underlying device context into something, because it's obviously if I'm running the code on an iPhone or something else, a desktop PC, it might not necessarily actually have HTML canvas underneath the covers. What am I looking at? Canvas context wrapper. Aha, do one of these. So it's, can I do that? Here we are. Well, where's the method to get the actual context out of it? Oh, luckily it's called get context. So what I actually want to do is inside my test node, var canvas equals ctx.get context and canvas.fillRect. Is that working? I've got to reload. Oh, breakpoint was being hit. I always forget that. Ah, right, there it is. There's a box being drawn there. It's definitely doing something underneath my node by the looks of it. Let's see if I can set its colors. I'm after the documentation again. What I need is, I'm pretty sure there used to be a push and pop transform function. Here we are, save and restore the context, that's it. So we want to save the context. Does that work? Save, oh, I don't know. Save the current state of the context. Is it just a case of canvas.save? Okay. Then I can do things like set canvas.set color. Set correct. There's the color method. Fill style sets and returns the color gradient. Sets or returns. Okay. Fill style. Oh, okay. So fill style. Define a red color, so we can do that. Let's have it blue, solid blue, and then we want to do canvas.restore afterwards. The reason for doing the save and restore is that the engine is going to have all sorts of context on the rendering canvas that is set up prior to coming into this point, and we want to make sure we don't break anything rendering afterwards. Right. Yes, so there's my blue box. It seems to be slightly transparent. That's interesting. I wonder why it's transparent. Unless there's a opacity that's somehow set. Anyway, so I've now got a custom node which is drawing something, but I'm a little concerned that it's drawing something anchored off of my existing thing. I thought that's going to be completely independent. What am I doing here? I'm adding this test node. I haven't done something stupid like called it test node. No. If I add it to the game panel, it should just be drawn at 0, 0. Let's try that. Game panel. Self.gamePanel.add child. And if I do test node.x equals 0, set the y equals 0, it should just draw it at the bottom left, but it's not. Disappear. disappeared completely. Let's try putting it somewhere else. Nope, can't see it. That's my grid node being drawn, my test code inside grid. Now my test node has disappeared completely. Self.gamePanel, I might need some Z ordering actually, maybe that's the case. GamePanel.addChild, it's not self.gamePanel, it's GamePanel, that would explain it. Let's put it at 5, which I think is in front. Yeah, there it is again, there's my blue box, but it's drawing it relative to this node. Why is that the case? Is that something to do with the transform? That it's, I wonder if I have to call reset transform or something like that. Let's see, transform. Resets the current transform to the identity. Do I need to push and pop the transform separately? I wonder. Reading the docs here for transform, it's probably doing the similar thing here. Matrix identity. I wonder if there's some sample code for the canvas type. Underscore matrix for cc.math. I don't think that's quite what it has in mind when it. I could just try canvas.set transform. Excuse me. I should mute myself. My mute button on my keyboard also appears to minimize. So I've used Mac M to mute, and minimize must be the same command. So have a sip of tea while I'm at it. So we're getting somewhere today. We've got a bit of code doing something. It's not quite doing what I hoped, but it's at least drawing something on the screen. Set transform. I was going to use matrix, but I don't think this is going to work. This is just a wild stab in the dark. Ah, it drew something at the bottom left. Ah, it's drawing everything at the bottom left. That's resetting the matrix. But I want to get it. It looks like the canvas save and restore isn't restoring the transformation matrix. It's doing the other states, probably to do with the context information like color and stroke, things like that. What I want to do is get the current transformation matrix. See that? Set transform resets the current transform to identity, then runs transform. There must be get transform. What am I missing? HTML5 canvas get transform. No, there simply isn't. Somebody's asking on Stack Overflow, is there a context etc.? There must be a push and pop then. New specification. Oh, this is an ancient question. New specification includes a way to get it. So get transform does create a copy of the matrix. Let's just see if that works, shall we? Fill rect, restore that, and then canvas.set transform saved. Okay, that's not doing anything, and still drawing it all down at the bottom left. Thinking it's drawing everything at the bottom left. Ah, okay. Now get transform is not a function, so it's crashing at that point. So maybe there's a Cocos2d method, because it's probably inside. Let's see what happens. Let's breakpoint that. Okay, so we've called out of rendering. Oh, needs rendering has also passed a scale value as well. That's interesting. Looking for context. So this is the rendering method. Oh, this is where it uses rapid.get context. What's a fill rects? Debugging. Oh, okay, dirty regions. So it's a similar thing. It's using. So the way the new renderer works is all of the render commands that get queued up as part of the update loop then all get rendered, but I expect only ones that have been flagged as dirty and need redrawing actually get redrawn, which optimizes things no end. Especially if you're drawing backgrounds, or if something is on a background and nothing has been drawn over the front of it, it doesn't need to be refreshed. Useful things like that. Lots of region calculations going on, I expect, under the covers by the engine. Anyway, I was looking for somewhere to rendering. Must be a way of. Let's do a quick search. Get transform. This might be a widget transform. No, it's not that, is it? What about push state? I mean, if it was OpenGL, there'd be push and pop. I think one can do that. And there's a matrix stack, but there probably isn't in Canvas code. Actually, if I go back to the WebGL code, I could probably fix this properly. Anyway, save transform. So I'm trying to think of the best way that I can actually do this now. APIs, rendering canvas. So this is part of Firefox, tracking transformation matrices. Oh, current transform, okay. I wonder if that's a thing. Property of the Canvas2D API. So current transform. Then you set it. Okay, I wonder that might just work. Save transform equals canvas dot transform. Let's try that. Oh, it hasn't crashed yet. Ah, no. Set transform, 6 arguments required but only 1 present. Okay. So I guess I can just do canvas dot. Interestingly, that worked. What happened there? It's that one. So that one's not working. Okay, I don't. Do I need that anymore? If I just do that, that's going to set the identity, I hope. Hi, Senor Bardell. Can see it. No, 6 arguments present only. Set transform, 6 arguments present, but 0 present. Yeah. Trying to figure out canvas.set transform just so I can get something on the screen. So matrix, is it ABC? Okay, it expects that. So I can I'll just pinch that for now. Copy. what's the identity matrix going to be? It's going to be 1, 0, 0, 0. 1, 0, 0, 2, 1, 0, 0, right. Let's see what that does. That's not going to work though either, is it? I'm probably going to want canvas dot. I wonder if that takes a copy or whether it actually canvas. Right, so that's drawing my square in a fixed place by the looks of it. Is it 0, 0? Yes, so I've set the transformation to the identity, which has brought the coordinate system back to basically the start of the canvas of the screen area, and it's drawing it up there, 0, 0. Right, that's quite useful. Although it's interestingly, it's using the transformation of the, it's using canvas coordinates, I think, which is 0, 0 top left, not Cocos2d-JS coordinates, which is 0, 0 bottom left. I might be wrong on that, I can't remember. This is doing something. There's probably some code that will transform the coordinate system into the current node's space. Let's see, if I just search for, there's world transform there, which is an interesting one. It might be that. Well, it's going to be node transform, isn't it? Node transform. Nope. Let's just see where that's defined. CC render canvas command. Here we are. So when this does something, it just calls transform. Wonder why. I would have thought, given the point at which the rendering is occurring, that the transformation on the context on the canvas was set up for drawing this particular node. So I shouldn't actually need to. Actually, that save is different. So I shouldn't actually need to do this bit. And it should just draw it in the place that it's expected to be, unless, do I have to set something like need draw true every time? Maybe not, I don't know. I wonder if it is. Let's just debug break in there and see. So what do we have? We have self. So cache dirty, need draw is always true. We've got this matrix, which may or may not be what I think it is. It's the identity by the looks of it. Is this the GL code does this? Let's jump back to the GL code for a minute and see what it does. If I can fiddle about with that for a few minutes. If that doesn't work, then we'll call it a day. But I have at least got something working. So this is drawing my blue box. Actually, it's in a slightly different place, isn't it? That's interesting. It's stuck there on the screen. That's probably because the fill rect and the coordinate system for WebGL and Canvas is probably back to front, as in up top to bottom or bottom to top. That's the trouble with using native rendering code, is you have to know all the ins and outs. I probably won't use this very much in the long term. In fact, I could probably use the internal Cocos2d-JS utilities for rendering something on the screen. That might be a thing to try next time. I will have a bit of a look at some more sample code in the meantime, and maybe on Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock UK time, I will jump back into this and see if I can't finish off this test node and have it actually drawing within the scene in the right place, drawing something appropriate. At the moment, I'm just trying to get it to draw a rectangle. Do follow me, who's been around for a while. Code for Life, well, thanks for watching. You've been around for a while, I appreciate that. And follow as well. I shall be back Thursday afternoon, 3 o'clock UK time. I will check this code in because it's actually doing something. I will make a couple of comments. Unlike last time where I didn't check anything code in because it wasn't doing anything, I will check this in now. Save the canvas transform. Setting to welcome web is my main. Nice icon. I'm about to end the stream actually. Just going to check some code into GitHub. I almost said Perforce. I've said check some code into Perforce. Is my phrase for the last 15 years. Only in the last year or so have I started using GitHub or Git. So it's my automatic reflex for checking code in is Perforce. Save the transform, and it's not check in, is it? It's commit or push or something else. To Git setting to identity puts the rectangle at 0, 0 top left. Right. 0, top left. WebGL code. I'll just put a comment in here. Ellipsis on the end there. Right, so that's test node. Let's now actually commit this before I go away. So test node, we've added that. Yeah, added that. And here's the new bit of code that puts it on the screen. Looks like the X and Y doesn't do anything anymore. But so commit. Welcome, Krypton Brugger. Just about to end the stream, committing some stuff to GitHub. Oh, and live coding TV support as well. I'll be around for another 5 minutes. Still doesn't. Let's change that. The node isn't positioned correctly yet, but that'll be fixed later. I always leave little notes for myself. Commit push. So that's the code, and I will try and figure out a bit more over before the next stream on Thursday to see if I can't get it positioning in the right place and doing what I want it to do, and then we can probably use the same code or use that node in the grid to start rendering some debug information about the grid and the forwarded blocks and where they are within the grid, and then the future means more actual game code. Right, thanks very much for watching today, much appreciated. I will see you again soon, in a couple of days' time. Let me switch back to my intro splash screen, and then finish the stream. Oh, and Cocos2d-JS has just joined, and I'm just about to end. Sorry, mate. I will see you in a couple of days' time if you're around Thursday at 3 o'clock. Cheerio.